What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here at DataDash, and today is August 3rd of 2022. Well, folks, I hope you all are having a fantastic day wherever you are, because in today's video, we got to dispel some really unnecessary FUD that unfortunately is getting stirred up in the headlines that's panicking a lot of Bitcoin investors. And you might have seen it yourself. It looks a little something like this. Michael Saylor steps down as MicroStrategy CEO as the company takes a near $1 billion charge on its Bitcoin holdings. Now, if I were to read that for the first time without understanding the context, I would have thought that MicroStrategy sold its Bitcoin, that it's going to file for bankruptcy or restructuring, and that Michael Saylor has been tossed out and they've completely given up on Bitcoin and they're going to unload a lot of Bitcoin onto the market. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. And I want to spend some time to talk about why this isn't some reason for Bitcoin to collapse down to 15 or 20,000, because that's just not what's happening. Now, I want to first just start off the conversation here with this. During the previous collapse we had in price back in May and June, I was concerned for some time. The MicroStrategy, depending on the deals that it had lined up with creditors to purchase Bitcoin, would be in a rough spot. I was in the shoes that a lot of people probably were in at that time as well. It was a Western showdown of wondering, okay, who's insolvent and who's going to cause a further consolidation or capitulation event within the market. The good news is, though, as Michael Saylor had actually stated himself on behalf of MicroStrategy, they are actually not going to get liquidated until Bitcoin were to go down as far as $3,000. So that's the really good news here. Now, what is it with this headline here? What is this headline actually telling us? Did Michael Saylor get kicked out from his position as CEO at the company? No. In fact, he has migrated over towards a different position in the company, one that's essentially focused on continuing to expand its strategy around Bitcoin and its further investments in the ecosystem. They have had another individual from the team step in towards the CEO role. As executive chairman now, Michael Saylor stated, "I will be able to focus more on our Bitcoin acquisition strategy and related Bitcoin advocacy initiatives, while Feng will be empowered as the CEO to manage overall corporate operations." Now, Feng in this case will be taking over the CEO role. My understanding is he was in the CFO role beforehand. So Michael Saylor didn't get kicked out. The company is still really big on this idea of Bitcoin. And we'll talk about the pros and cons of this later on. I'm not trying to be a permabull here or just cheer on our celebrity cheerleader Michael Saylor here when it comes to Bitcoin. But I just want to clarify here on the headline that he's not leaving the company, nor did he get forced out. He's stepping into an equally high role in the company and having another individual step into the more probably active CEO role, right? So this is something that typically happens over time. You generally have people step into an executive chairman position or some type of higher level tier where maybe they're a little less active on the day-to-day operations of the core company. In a CEO role, we need to understand that MicroStrategy's core business is the services it provides, not its treasury management. So this kind of makes sense here with Michael Saylor putting a lot more of his focus on Bitcoin acquisition and Bitcoin strategy. So that's point number one here. But the second thing as well in the headlines is leaving a lot of people wondering, oh my gosh, did MicroStrategy lose $917 million? Did they buy Bitcoin at those higher prices during the bull market and sell at the bottom? Did they have to capitulate and sell their positions, or did they just want to do it because they thought it was the best decision? No, they didn't sell any Bitcoin. That's the really important thing to understand, guys. Now, I know there was some articles back about a month ago, I think I read, where some people were claiming on-chain that they saw Bitcoin moving from their wallets and that they sold it and this and that. But guys, they just released their quarterly report. They're a publicly traded company. And so far, they are still holding the recorded amount we had from the last available metric on June 28th of 129,699 Bitcoins. And we can see that, again, as we go throughout the reports. If you look to the financial reports that they actually put out, and also some of the other headlines that are being a little bit more truthful and not trying to stir up controversy, they're still holding all the same Bitcoins that they had before. They're just consistently acquiring over time at a smaller rate. Now, here's the big question. What does it mean for MicroStrategy to have a $900 million plus loss on their books? It essentially means, due to the accounting method that MicroStrategy uses as a public company that needs to, on a legal basis in compliance with the SEC, has to report quarterly earnings, Through their accounting methods, they record gains and losses by the value of the Bitcoin on their balance sheet changing over time, irrespective as to whether or not they sell it or, again, sell it at a gain or a loss, right? Even if they don't realize it is still on their books, tracked as a gain or loss. And there's a lot of crypto mining companies that are like this. You'll see sometimes their quarterly profit margins or their annualized profit margins are sometimes triple digits, and they're doing really well and people are really excited about it. And then sometimes it's a doomsday scenario where they're losing 50-70% on their balance sheet for the quarter or for the year because of Bitcoin's price. That's just how it works. And we need to look past not just these headlines that are trying to kind of stir up that controversy and really focus on what's going on here with the company. And so far, I got to be honest with you all here. A lot of people were betting against MicroStrategy down here, just like how they were shorting Bitcoin and betting on the market going down to 14K and 15K. And while we were definitely open to something like this happening, we sure as hell weren't shorting the bottom. And boy, thank God we didn't, because take a look here what MicroStrategy stock has done. Since double bottoming here around $146, it's gone up to practically $280 to $290, practically doubling within the span of about a month and a half. This is why we don't get perma-bearish, we don't get too overtly confident and start to try and shorting the market when it's already down 75%. And it's not to say that Bitcoin eventually can't go down and that MicroStrategy stock won't follow. But we need to understand here what's real and what's not. And you can see here, I promise you would see it in the market price. We can see it as well in the aftermarket trading when the quarterly earnings report came out. The aftermarket trading shows no signs of panic. There's no problems here. They have not sold their Bitcoin en masse. And I can guarantee you guys, if MicroStrategy would have had to sell back here or even started selling, you would have probably gotten your 14, 15K target because they own 0.67% of the existing Bitcoin supply. They own practically about 6.5% of the entire Bitcoin supply that will ever exist. They own a massive amount. And it's likely that they'll probably continue to acquire over time. If they're not selling in this environment, they're probably looking at the counter opposite of acquiring. Now, even though we keep this in mind here, right, not to short the market, especially Bitcoin is starting to show confident signs here of almost a kind of parabolic buildup of higher lows here, looking like it's ready to squeeze higher potentially over the coming days or weeks. I'm not saying that as a guarantee, but I think that we've got the signs of optimism here to have a continued relief rally in the market. Right, we've got the continued growth in both equities for MicroStrategy and Silvergate. I do think the important thing to understand here when we're looking at these different players here is to understand MicroStrategy's unique position in its direct exposure to Bitcoin. Now, this is one of the problems that MicroStrategy is going to have to think about long term. I think if you're going to invest in any crypto, for sure, Bitcoin is the first one you go to. And I can understand why MicroStrategy, and more specifically Michael Saylor, is really excited and bullish about Bitcoin. It is one of the most, kind of established cryptocurrencies, being the largest in the market. It makes sense. It's kind of like if you were to start stock investing, you should probably have holdings in companies like Apple or the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ, right? Rather than going towards putting all your money into just one individual stock or small cap or mid cap stock. My biggest point, though, is that we've got a very important contender, albeit maybe not in the next 3 or 4 months, potentially over the next 6 to 12 months, next 18 months, and that is Ethereum. Plain and simple. And MicroStrategy has put itself on a big bet here that Bitcoin is going to continue remaining the number one largest crypto. It's going to be the gold, digital gold, essentially, this sound money for the global economy. And there is a chance that Ethereum could come in to compete with that, especially with its dominance over the DeFi ecosystem. So I think that that is one of the big bets that unfortunately MicroStrategy has cornered itself into a little bit. So considering that MicroStrategy is not in some position where they have to sell a lot of their Bitcoin or that they haven't sold any, I think an important question here is where we actually think Bitcoin could go here over the coming few days. The big key thing to watch for here is when any of these green daily candles that are potentially forming here are able to enclose on anywhere from around 2 to 3 days of previous losses. I think this is the kind of sign here when you can start to be comfortable going long for the next move higher. And the reason why is because we've not only got higher lows here that, not to mention, are really starting to separate themselves at quite a decent distance, which is a sign of confidence that bids are getting filled, taking in any sell side pressure from the potential sellers in the market as prices coming down, but at higher levels. But on top of that as well, it's important to look at these candle structures here and note that, for example, it might be what looks like a golden hammer here, right? Nice wick at the bottom, nice solid green candle. While this might look really bullish right now, what we need to see is a daily close with this kind of move here, or at least something that's substantial enough to get above the past few previous days. Because if you look at all these candles here, this candle was likely in a very similar position to this one, but it just happened to close red here and then lead on towards another red day, right? So the important thing is that you want to see something that solidifies more confidence here. I think the bigger thing to watch is to take a look at the 4-hour time frame. We've got our key price levels here that we've been watching from around 22,500 to around right under 22,850. And we're watching to see how price reacts with the 4-hour 200 EMA. So long as price holds above this range, as well as the 200 EMA, like we've seen here so far, since we were able to get price above this range, that's all we need to see. The bulls are in charge here, and we don't fight the trend, right? Same reason why we should not fight the trend on the downside. When price can't get above those same indicators that were serving as resistance, right? We don't fight it. And we bet the price is likely going to continue going lower. We follow the trend. But now we are turning those same indicators that were resistance previously for the past couple of months in 2022. They are now servicing as support. And that is critical to understand here when we're talking about being bullish or bearish here. Until that rule is broken, I don't think there's really a good chance we come down to this range here, right? Until we get below 21,500 or, again, generally speaking, wherever these moving averages are, the bulls are in charge here. And we should assume that through higher lows and higher highs here, this is probably going to go up here to an area that many people just don't think is possible now. I think most people don't see a $27,500 Bitcoin, a $30,000 Bitcoin is reasonable. Many people are on the sidelines with liquidity. And I have a feeling, as it usually ends up being, a lot of people are going to get optimistic at the wrong time when we get up into that range. And many people are going to think, oh my gosh, this is the inflection point. This is where we kick off the next bull run. And if you guys check out our latest edition of the Dash Report, which we just dropped the other day, I dive really deep into this topic of how to actually spot real capitulation, real bear market bottoms that take much longer than anticipated before we really kick off the next bull run. So I definitely recommend you guys check that out down below in the description. It's a great way to support the channel, but also a really great way to go even deeper into this topic that is incredibly relevant if you're looking to pick bottoms, dollar cost average, just generally try to buy the dip essentially. It's very important to understand that and the emotions that can come with various strategies trying to enter into the bottom, just so you're best prepared for that situation. And hopefully so you don't miss the next bull run. Anyways, that's it for today's video, guys. Pretty brief one here. Just wanted to talk about this headline, dispel a lot of the FUD, talk about the current status of MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy has a big macro element to the crypto space, and it's important to understand the financial situation and the kind of risk that MicroStrategy has taken in investing in Bitcoin. And it seems like, 3K is very, very far out of the cards. So I think MicroStrategy is well protected so long as they stick to their long-term thesis and so long as Bitcoin can remain that leading asset in the crypto sector. But that's it for today's video, everyone. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, consider dropping a like, consider subscribing, and hit the bell icon. But until the next video, I'll see you all in the next one. Take care, everyone.